Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this session on 7 ways to grow your business. If you're a first-time user to Zoom, there might still be a few of us out there. Hopefully you're hearing me loud and clear. If you are not, I imagine at some point you'll drop something into the chat panel, which is the same place where we will be submitting any questions that you may have during the session. So please use the chat facility to pose your questions. I'll answer them throughout as I see them. In the event I don't, there is a dedicated time at the end that questions can be addressed. And if you need to jump out at for whatever reason during the session, feel free to do so. You can simply rejoin using the link that you would have joined us on today. For those who don't know me, my name is Chris East, owner and director of East Partners, and I'll be presenting today's session. Like I do with these webinars, for those of you that have attended a few of these throughout the year, I like to start with some wise words. This one is perhaps a little topical. This comes from the third American president, Thomas Jefferson, who said, "If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done." And with the year that we're in, it's arguable that these words are just as relevant today as they were when they were originally said some 230 years ago. Today's session is essentially about challenging you to do something different in your business so that you can get the results that you've never achieved. So today's agenda, before we get stuck in, I just want to throw, I guess, a usual disclaimer that we have on this sort of thing. It's essentially the concepts today are educational and for educational purposes only. They're general and aren't substitute for tailored advice. So obviously if you are looking for that, that is a separate discussion that needs to be had. One of the biggest problems in small business that I see is what I call FTI, or failure to implement. If you don't write your actions down, you simply won't remember them. And arguably, if they're not written down, are they really that important? Just like if you don't write down your business goals for next year, you'll be far less likely to achieve them. So we want you to get maximum value from this webinar. So if you have any questions, then please submit them, as I said earlier, at any time. Today we'll cover how you need to make the choice to change and how to develop a roadmap and dashboard for your business. We'll then get into the 7 key ways to grow your business, and I'll show you a worked example which demonstrates how you can make seemingly small adjustments to your business, but the compound effect on the bottom line and cash flow can be really significant. We'll then look at accountability, why it's important, when you have to decide what action you're going to take as a result of coming along today. As I said before, any questions, raise them throughout and we'll get them addressed either throughout or at the end. As we all know, we've been through a lot recently, and it's likely you'll know the need to have made some changes, and you've most likely had to have made some changes in your business. Change just doesn't happen on its own. You have to make the choice to change. Some change has been put on us, there is absolutely no question, but we then have to then look at how we respond to that. And you're in control of how you respond. And the COVID crisis that we've had this year is a good example. There's generally 5 steps that we see in this process. The first is being aware that you need to change. It's unlikely your business has ever been able to continue as normal, and changes have always needed to have been made and will continue to need to be made. The next step is to accept that there is need for change, and this generally isn't easy. we're creatures of habit ordinarily, and change doesn't come as being a comfortable situation to face. But the alternative of not changing is not easy either. The decision not to change is perhaps just as difficult, if not more difficult, than needing to change or to face change. Once you've accepted that change is needed, you need then to take action. So what steps do you need to take to enable the change to occur? And this is where a lot of people tend to get stuck. They may respond to immediate actions while in crisis mode, but fail to take the real positive or decisive action that's required. To make sure you do take action, accountability is clearly needed. Being held accountable by someone independent is where arguably the rubber hits the road, and this is where change really does happen. And finally, take time to acknowledge the change that you've actioned. And I think sometimes in the quest for improvement, that it's easy to overlook the steps that we've already taken. So taking your team on the journey and giving positive reinforcement is really, really important in acknowledging the steps that have been taken. So how to get from point A to point B? Before you make a plan for where you want your business to go, you must first understand where your business is now, and that's essentially your point A. The impact of COVID has meant that it's likely that you're further away from your destination than where you would have been. And in some ways, point B may now be harder to get to, or maybe you just can't see how it's possible. Alternatively, it's likely that point B is still possible, but it just may take longer, or the route to get there may be a little different. For example, before COVID, your point A may have been, say, to have a $50,000 overdraft, and your goal, being your point B, was to have $50,000 cash in the bank within a 12-month period. So essentially, it's a $100,000 turnaround from owing 50 to now having 50. So what does the point A in your business look like now? Maybe you've had to extend your overdraft by, say, another $25,000 to cover expenses throughout the lockdown. So point A is now a $75,000 overdraft, and the journey to point B is increasing the cash in your account by $125,000. It might still be realistic, but perhaps the time frame needs to change, that instead of it being 12 months, maybe it needs to be 2 years. So think about this. What is the point A? Where are you at in your business? And what is the goal or the point B for your business? What does the journey to get there look like? And what have the events this year done to that? And how does that journey look like into the future? So the plan from getting from point A to point B is essentially, now that you know where you are as a result of COVID and you know where you want to go, you need to revise your plan. This could be as simple as, say, reviewing and updating your existing business plan, or it could be developing a business recovery plan. And for those of you that may have attended our business recovery planning session earlier in the year, you may recall some of the concepts that we raised in that session. If the impact on your business has been minimal, then it's likely that an update to your business plan would be your best option. However, if the business has been significantly impacted, we certainly would recommend a business recovery plan, as essentially this will help you revise your personal budget to reduce the pressure on your business's cash flow, determine whether any additional finance is needed, and revise your business budget and break-even analysis. If you didn't attend that session, there is a recording on our website, and I'd point you to that to uncover that in more detail, or simply get in touch, and I'd be happy to talk about some of those things that were covered in and around business recovery planning. You'll also establish your most critical KPIs to monitor at that point and identify opportunities, vulnerabilities, critical challenges, and so forth. You'll identify risks in each area of your business as well as risk mitigation strategies, set budgets, set goals, set 90-day target plans, and so forth to ensure you achieve your plan. They're essentially the key components of putting that plan together. Making sure you're clear on those KPIs, identifying those opportunities, vulnerabilities, and the real challenges that you have in getting the outcomes that you want. So when we then look at getting from point A to point B and considering the budget that's going to be required to do so, start with the profit that you need your business to deliver for you, and then work your way up to determine the level of sales required. So for example, you may have had a profit target of say $150,000, which would have been sufficient enough for your business to deliver what you want. Being in lockdown may have shown you that you could live on less. So after revising your personal budget, you may be able to reduce the profit target for the business from 150 to 130. Let's say your overheads were 350, but after doing a pretty thorough analysis of your expenses, you may have been able to trim them down to 325,000. Which then gives an adjusted gross profit of 455,000, which was previously 500. But if you want to keep the same gross profit percentage, and in this example we're saying that it's 39%, we would need to have an adjusted sales target of about $1.17 million, which beforehand it was close enough to 1.3. So when you look at that, you then may say, well, as a matter of fact, our adjusted sales target is still a bit ambitious. Does that mean that we need to look at perhaps further cost trimming? Some may suggest a reduction in gross profit. I wouldn't recommend that because that is incredibly hard to regain. Of course, these are pretty high level numbers, so you need to develop this in more detail, and from there needing to break this down into monthly targets and monitor those to make sure that you stay on track. But as an illustration, this is where you would be looking at your old budget relative to your new to then determine what actions do I need to be taking from here. So when we then look at the dashboard, essentially you now know where you're going and what you want to achieve. It's time to set up that dashboard. Just like the dashboard on your car shows you how fast you're going, how much fuel you have left, the temperature of your engine and so forth, the dashboard for your business gives you an indication about whether you'll make it to your destination, just like it does in your car. The things on your business's dashboard are key performance indicators or KPIs. Essentially, they're measures which tell you if you're on track to achieving your plan. And the dashboard should show the top 4 or 5 measures which drive most of your business improvement. Focusing on a small number of KPIs, in my view, allows you to capture, monitor, report, and improve them on a regular basis. The most important KPIs will depend on the type of business that you have as well as your goals. Now, I've had some clients say to me in the past, well, why is it only 3 or 4? I just feel that from a practical perspective, like most things, the Pareto principle says that 80% of our results come from 20% of our activity or our clients or whatever it may be. And within that, the key drivers that achieve that are generally 2, 3, maybe 4 things. Focusing on more just means that the ability to manage those effectively and efficiently is diminished. So the types of KPIs that you would have for your business dashboard are going to depend on the type of business that you are. So in the case of a manufacturer, looking at things such as gross profit percentage, the costs of rework or downtime, work in progress days, and the days that it takes for our customers to pay us, being debtor days, are generally the ones that we would suggest are the more common KPIs that would be involved. Conversely, a retailer, generally they're fairly sales driven. Gross profit's also pretty important. The average client spend is generally up there, and the number of times that customers purchase is another regular KPI that we would see. It's important to determine which KPIs you should be measuring. So for service-based businesses, they will be different again. And generally, a similar thing, gross profit is a regular thing and can be a combination of some of those that are up on the screen. So as I said, it's important to determine which KPIs you should be measuring, set goals for improvement, and establish a dashboard to regularly monitor how you're progressing. So the co-drivers to have on this journey. When you set goals, do you have someone to hold you accountable for what you are committed to? And what are the consequences for you if you don't achieve your goals? Do you have a soft coach or a hard coach is essentially what I'm asking. If you recall earlier when I was talking about the 5 A's of change, one of them was accountability. And from my perspective, you simply must have someone independent to hold you accountable to your actions. And there should be consequences for inaction. Does your spouse keep you accountable? And for some things, if it's in my case, yes, but when in a business sense, no. So is having or should a spouse be the person who's going to keep you accountable? Arguably, having someone independent is going to be the key to making sure that the accountability aspect of those 5 A's is met. So let's have a look at maximizing efficiency on this journey. To summarize for where we're at, if your business is the vehicle that delivers to you what you want in life, the 4 top things you need to do to make sure you get to your destination. You must have an annual plan. Just like when we plan a holiday, we need to set the activities that we're going to do, where we're going to go, and so forth. We need to do the same thing with our business. So what is our plan? What is the budget? Just like when we plan a holiday, we're going to cost that out. We need to cost out the activities that are going to be required for the business to undertake to make sure that those objectives that are set in the plan are met. Identify, set and measure the 4 to 5 most important KPIs. And as I said, have someone independent to keep you accountable so that your plan is met. All right, the marketing flywheel, I like this one. And I'm sure that if you've been on one of these sessions before, you would have seen this. So before we get started on the 7 ways to grow your business, it's important for you to understand the marketing flywheel. And this concept shows you how to attract, engage, and delight customers, and demonstrates that you shouldn't just focus on gaining new customers, but you should focus on delighting your current customers. So in the first instance, we have strangers, people who haven't heard about our business. So we can do some marketing to introduce our business to these strangers, who will then hopefully become prospects. And they essentially have the opportunity to buy from us. When those prospects end up making a purchase, they become a customer. And if we treat them right, these customers will then become promoters of our business. And in order to attract prospects to our business, we need to provide value before we extract value. Think about what they'll get from doing business with you and the problems that you'll solve. So again, provide value before you extract value. How many of your competitors are looking to extract value from day one and aren't looking to be providing something to their customers? What can you do better compared to what they're doing? To convert prospects into customers, we must engage by making it as easy as possible for them to buy from us. Our marketing is what attracts and engages prospects and turns them into customers. How many businesses out there make it so hard for the customer to buy from them? Are you one of those businesses? You want to make that activity as easy as possible. And ultimately, we want the sales process to ensure that customers continue to be engaged and are followed up with really good service. Delighted customers will share their feedback with strangers, creating more prospects, customers, and promoters. And the level of service we provide determines how we delight and attract our current and future customers. So the aim of the marketing flywheel is to keep it spinning as fast as possible, converting more strangers into prospects and prospects into customers, and providing such good service that those customers become promoters, and essentially they have nowhere else to go other than your business. Following this process, in my view, is essential to the growth of a business. So now we can start looking at the 7 key ways that you can grow your business. And the first way to grow your business is to increase your customer retention rate. It's much cheaper, you probably know this, it's much cheaper to make sales to existing customers. There's lots of different stats out there. The one that I find that's probably the most consistent, it shows that it's around 6 times easier and cheaper to make sales to existing customers than it is to new customers. So by delighting our customers, we want them to return, therefore increasing our customer retention rate. So think about this. What do you do to delight your customers? So I think that we can break that down into something pretty simple. Find out what they want, go get it, and give it to them. Secondly, we want to generate more leads. The best way to generate more leads is to delight your customers so they become promoters and provide you with more leads. Good old word of mouth, referrals. But that said, you can't purely rely on your existing customers to do your marketing for you. So you still need to be able to attract strangers using your marketing strategies and by providing value. There's lots of different examples around what that may look like. It could be free downloads from your website. It could be a free trial, consultation, product samples. It could be lots and lots of different things. Regardless of what it is, you need to show them the problems you solve if they engage you in the service that you're providing or the product that you're providing, whatever it is. The third way to grow your business is to increase your conversion rate. So what do we mean by that? Do you measure how successful you are at converting leads, quotes, proposals into sales? Do you regularly review why you aren't converting more? You should be monitoring, ideally, the conversion rates of all members in your sales team if you have one. Or if it's just you, you're the sales team. So what are your conversion rates looking like? If you do have a team, if some are performing better than others, find out why. Are you using the right people in the sales process? Are they the right people for that process? The key to successfully converting sales is to ensure you're dealing with a decision maker. Don't deal with with gatekeepers. Get straight to the person who can make a decision. All right, increasing transaction frequency. Fourth way to grow your business is to do just that. As I said earlier, it's much harder to sell to new customers than it is to sell to existing customers. So it makes sense to encourage those customers to buy from us more often. You can do this by sending reminders, frequent transactions or loyalty cards, those sorts of things, special deals to existing customers, bundling products. There's lots of different ways. What can you do to increase the number of times that your customers buy from you? Increasing the transaction value. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean simply increasing prices. Think about how you could add more value to your customers. Could you provide them with a range of options? Is it clear what your business offers? Don't assume that your customers already know. You need to tell them. Follow the would you like fries concept. We all know that one from McDonald's. That single-handedly turned that business from what was a good business to a great business, arguably an outstanding business, by adding those simple words. How can you adapt that to your business? The sixth way to grow a business is to reduce your variable costs. Now, what does that mean? I'd like to probably put it into more user-friendly language. And it's essentially those costs that are associated with you producing your sales. They generally include the costs of labor, so employees, the cost of materials that you may have. So if you're a manufacturer or product-based business, what are the costs of the raw materials you need to make your product? What are the costs of the wholesale costs of the products that you buy to then sell them to the public? They could be other things such as sales commissions on product-based businesses. Regardless of what it is, implementing better systems to accurately record time and materials used, as well as implementing strategies to reduce rework and wastage, could help your variable costs. And the last one's reducing your overheads. And essentially overheads are there whether you turn up to work today or not. Things like rent, things like the phone bill, things like the power bill. Yeah, some of them will have a little bit of variability depending on whether you use them or not, but essentially they're the same whether you're there for 1 hour or 50 hours. So this is where we want to have a look and say, what can you do to adjust some of these costs? How often do you review your overheads? Arguably the last 8 months or so has been a really good opportunity and has probably forced a lot of people to review their overheads. But again, when did you last give that some serious thought? Ideally, this should normally be done annually as probably part of your annual planning and budgeting process. But if you haven't, then it's a really good time to do it now. Go through your annual financial statements for some of you on the line that they may already have been done. So go through those numbers. Look at your reports. If you're a Xero user, you've got access to those reports immediately and identify overheads you could potentially reduce. You might be able to negotiate better terms on utilities and rents. You might be able to reduce the amount of office supplies being used. You may be able to move into a cheaper phone contract or an internet deal, whatever it may be. It could also be looking at your accounting fees. So whilst we're talking about accounting fees, we're telling you to reduce your costs, so you might think that your accountant is a cost, and then you should look to cut them out. In some cases, that might be appropriate. But in other cases, you might want to take the view to say that if you want to work with a strategic partner in your business, then you would perhaps need your accountant more than ever. I tend to think of the accountant as an investment rather than a cost, with the goal being that the accountant is there to save you more in tax or to help you grow your business in ways that you may not necessarily have thought about. Ideally, that investment should produce a return. And if you think about that relationship in a strategic way, then that's exactly what it should do. All right, the growth equation. This is a beauty. Some of you may have already seen this. I may have worked through this with potentially some of you on the line. But look, if you haven't, that's okay, because we're going to whip through it now. I think this holds tremendous value in all businesses. And essentially, the growth equation is a calculator that we use to show how small changes can have a big impact on profit. By monitoring your KPIs, which implies that you need to know what they are, you can set goals for improvement. The calculator essentially shows you the 7 ways to grow your business in action. For efficiency, during this webinar, I've just used some screenshots of the calculator. But what we do in a real life scenario is that we sit down with you and run through your numbers to see the impact that small changes can have on your business and determine the goals for improving your KPIs to achieve that new level of profit. So let's have a quick look at the current KPIs and profit in this example company that I've got here. Then I'll show you the impact that these small changes can have on the profit and the value of the business. The numbers have been rounded just for completeness, so just in case anyone out there is trying to do the maths in their head as we go along. So in the first instance, we look at this business and we say that there's 765 customers, and that business is retaining 85% of them in any given year, which then says from the start of the year to the end of the year, they've gone from 765 and they've got 650 at the end. But during that year, through whether it be from the promotion of their existing customers, whether it be from their marketing, whatever it is, they've achieved or received 145 inquiries, which they've managed to convert 50% of them. That adds another 73 customers, so they finish the year with 723. On average, each customer buys just over once from this business a year, with an average transaction value of $1,560, which gives revenue of about 1.24 mil. Their cost of sales is around about 70%, and they have expenses of about $265,000, which then leaves them with a profit of about $107,000, and roughly, if we said, well, if we multiplied that profit by 3, the business would be worth, say, $320,000. Note that that really isn't how we would normally value a business, but it just provides a rough guide. So what changes could this business make to improve its profit and therefore its value? The first way to grow your business is to increase the customer retention rate, as we mentioned before. So what we've looked at in this case is that, let's say, for example, this business has implemented a customer loyalty program and creates a customer Facebook group. This results in an increase in their retention rate going from 85% to 90%, which has meant that they've been able to retain 39 more customers than they would have otherwise had. When we then look at the marketing activity, we've said they haven't achieved any more or any less leads, but as a result of COVID, for whatever reason, or other reasons, their conversion rate drops to 45%, which means that they've only acquired 65 new customers rather than 73. However, their total new customers has still increased from 723 to 754. The customer loyalty program means that customers now make an average of 1.3 transactions per year, and they spend an extra $40. Now, all of that work through has meant that sales has increased by about 330,000, going from 1.24 to 1.56. The business was able to negotiate some better terms with their supplier, and was also able to improve their inventory process and so forth. And as a result of that, there was a 5% decline from 70% to 65%. The result of that change has obviously meant that the business is a little bit more profitable. And further to that, they've also been able to, well, in this case, they've actually increased their overheads. In this particular case, they've had some wage cost increases, and they've also increased the investment that they've made with their business advisor being their accountant. That's not to be a shameless plug, that's just what they've done. This gives a new profit of around about 250,000, which is substantially higher than what it was before. And if we use that same business multiplier or valuation method, it's added a substantial, even bigger amount to the implied valuation. Now, in this example, it's only been a couple of small changes. One has been through an increased retention rate, which, as I said before, was a loyalty card and a Facebook group. The impact of COVID reduced their conversion rate, reduced their conversion amount, but the strength of that loyalty program meant that the increase in the transactions and the amount spent gave a really big benefit to their sales. Small reduction in their cost of sales and increase in their overhead still meant that they had a stronger profit. So just to reiterate the point, it doesn't have to be one big thing. A series of small changes has given what I would arguably say is a fairly dramatic effect to the bottom line. As Albert Einstein famously said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. Goodness me, that applies to all of us, I think. We all know this is right. So what do we have to do differently? And arguably, what do we need to be doing as we look further forward into next year, which is not that far away? We essentially have four choices. We do nothing, which is essentially saying, yeah, Chris, that was a nice webinar. I enjoyed you banging on about that. I know I probably should do some things differently, but hey, change seems to be all a bit too hard. We could retreat, which is essentially saying I might try a couple of things, but I have a couple of bad days in the business, so I retreat. I go back to doing what I was doing before because it's comfortable. I could take some action. I could do a few easy things here and there and get some quick cash flow improvement, but I haven't really fundamentally changed my business. So those quick wins evaporate along with the quick cash that they generated. Or we can be really brave and take massive amounts of action, which is essentially saying I want to fundamentally change my business because it's here to serve me and not the other way around. How many of us have our business where we are its servant rather than the business serving us? So as the old saying goes, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. We know that's not possible in the current environment, but if you do what you've always done, you'll get less of what you used to get. So as a matter of fact, it's even worse. So as I said earlier, essentially what we've provided here is some educational concepts, and it's no substitute for tailored advice, but there are ways in which we can help as a result of today's webinar. First, if you don't have a business plan, we can help get yours in place. Usually takes about half a day. and then you've got some clear objectives, goals, KPIs, and other deliverables that you can then focus on. If you need a bit of accountability to ensure you're on track in achieving your goals, we can meet with you quarterly to review and reset your goals and actions in your business plan. We do offer other coaching options if you would prefer accountability coaching more frequent than every quarter. We're offering all attendees that are on the webinar today to complete a 7 ways to grow your business action list. This allows you to identify the actions you can take to grow your business. We can then have a 15-minute complimentary call where we'll review your completed list, ensure you've identified all the actions relevant to your business, and that you have a plan to implement these changes. If that's an interest, please get in touch with me. Just email me directly to say that you would like to take that opportunity up. And for all clients, we offer a 1-hour complimentary meeting each year. And if you're not yet a client, here's your opportunity to have that 1-hour complimentary meeting to establish if you feel that we're the right fit for you. And now it's time to look for some questions. If you do have a question, a reminder, please pop those in the chat box and I can make sure they get addressed. But I've got a couple here, and these are really good questions. And one of them was talking about having a business partner. And just before I do that, all right, I'll just pop that on. Yeah, I have a business partner. Are they good for accountability? Now, I'll declare some personal bias here. I have had a business partner in the past, and that's probably why I say that, because that was in the past. I don't have one now. I think in some ways it's a little similar to having a spouse, in that we have our personal relationship here and we have our business relationship here. We do have some clients where it's mum and dad operation and they are able to transcend both aspects of their life, and they do it reasonably well. But invariably, when it comes time to making hard decisions, there's usually one who is more for and one who's more against. That can cause some problems in those personal relationship dynamics. So whilst you could have a non-related business partner, I still feel that there is times where both parties are too close to the action, and being able to get decisive change, a clear direction, and accountability for ongoing implementation and management is very, very difficult. So I'd always suggest having an independent party. The second question I've got is that it's actually to do with the growth equation that was up before, and it's essentially saying, what if I don't know what my existing numbers are? And that's a really, really good question, because a lot of small businesses do not know how many customers they have. How many times do those customers buy from them? What's their conversion rate? Well, yeah, very few, I would argue, track that. My response to that would be is to say, look, if you did know, what do you think they would be? So it's more or less saying, take a best guess. Because that's essentially a starting point, is to say, well, where am I at? There is no sense going away and saying, I don't know these numbers, I'm going to go and implement a CRM. And so then I can track all my customers and all that sort of thing, then get the numbers. In some ways, it's putting the cart before the horse. We need to be able to say, look, if you did know what they were, what do you reckon they would be? And use that as a starting point. Yes, tools like CRMs can then be used to manage the process as you go forward, certainly around monitoring, measuring the deliverables, what are the outcomes, being able to then improve the process, absolutely. But to put it in place and then get the numbers is could be a very expensive and frustrating exercise. So I hope those answers those couple of questions that I've got. If there's anything else that anyone would like to know and they would prefer just to to have a phone conversation or an email, please feel free to get in touch, and I'm happy to take that offline. So as we wrap up today, my parting thought is essentially saying success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequences of consistently applying basic fundamentals. So by that, I'm essentially saying make a simple plan today. Commit to at least 3 actions you would like to take as a result of today's webinar. Write them down. Give each of them an owner. And look, if you're a sole business or a small business and you're it, then put your name next to them. It might sound silly, but hey, it's written down, it's got your name. So all of a sudden, there's that first step in being accountable. And above all, remember that if you need our support, we're here to help. It's been a very difficult year. We've been very privileged to help so many clients through what's been a real tough time. And we're still here to help businesses as they look to recover, and in other cases as they look to launch further into achieving what they had originally planned to do at the start of the year before COVID made it a little more challenging. So thanks again for making the time to attend the webinar today. I really appreciate that your time is valuable, and you've given some of it up to be here to be part of this presentation. I hope that you've got plenty of ideas to take away, to ponder, and that there's some clear next steps that you can see that you need to take for your business. Thanks again. We'll see you next month for our next webinar. Bye for now.